We are so thrilled to be out here today at the grand opening of Mount Si High School. For us as architects, we have been imagining the possibilities of what can happen here for literally years, and we are so excited to now see that those possibilities are becoming reality.
Getting to this point is really exciting for us, not only as a district as a whole, but our community. I think when students walk through this building, they're going to feel respected because of what this community has allowed for our students to participate in.
It's largely designed kind of like a junior college, so we built a lot of spaces outside of the room for collaboration. One of the concepts we worked on with the architects was to make sure we didn't have odd intersections of hallways, tight, narrow spaces, lots of opportunities for kids to spread out.
We wanted flexible spaces that would adjust over the next 100 years of education, increase student collaboration to move outside of a classroom, to have something that is truly learner-centered and not just adult-focused, to try interdisciplinary approaches, and to really meet the social needs and emotional needs of our students.
On Mount Si High School, we faced a series of very significant and quite unusual challenges. We had to pursue deeper thinking in a very holistic way to take advantage of all opportunities that have been presented to us. So let's remember how it all happened. We can see from this watercolor sketch that the Mount Si High School is the third large form between the Mount Si on the east and Rattlesnake Ridge on the south, and it is bounded by the river on the north. The river is very idyllic, peaceful, but the river floods, and that required significant thinking about the resilience of the building. It was critical that building can be designed in a way that can resist and be sustainable even for those unfortunate events. You can see on this image how the campus was elevated in order for the adjacent landscape area and the underneath parking garage to absorb and allow the water flow in the event of the unfortunate floods.
In late 2012, NAC Architecture was hired to start working with the district to try to figure out what was the best approach for their high school program. They had a growing community. They had created a new freshman campus to provide new opportunities for their freshmen, as well as to address capacity needs at their high school level. We spent a few years studying a wide variety of options, from renovating the existing building to completely rebuilding it, to determine what was really the right thing for the district. We also worked closely with Frank Locker Planning Associates to go through a process with students, teachers, and other district staff to really envision what a new high school could be for them. One of the key things we did is try to identify what spatial characteristics are going to be really important for learning and for a successful high school. And with that, we developed a wide variety of words that we consider to be the signifiers of success. If our building could live up to the goals identified in these words and phrases, then we knew this building would be a success. Things like it needed to be student-centered. It needed to be a project-based environment. Students needed to have a really high level of engagement, and relationships needed to be supported throughout the building design. Everyone throughout this visioning process really believed that the building matters. The community resoundingly supported the bond measure that funded the construction of this new high school.
It's time we begin our journey in design. But we're not going to do this alone. We're going to be in partnership with the Snoqualmie Valley School District, engaging community members, key district staff, teachers, school staff, and students. We first began to explore the design through words with what are the constraints, what are the needs, and what are the goals for the project. Our large architectural team used a wide variety of methods to explore as many options as possible in an effort to achieve the best possible educational environment. The design process culminated in a large group meeting where we evaluated multiple design options based on owners' criteria and goals. This allowed us to select a preferred design option.
That selected option Brent just mentioned is a series of pavilions within the landscape. The next step was to really explore how independent or connected these pavilions wanted to be. We looked at this from an architectural perspective, of course, but also from an experiential and programmatic perspective as well.
After this very thorough planning session, we understood that we are looking at an elevated campus, and campus needed to be elevated physically, educationally, and experientially. On this diagram here, you can see that campus is brought up in 7 different buildings, academies. The concern of scale was very important for the group. So that physical breaking down of scale into the smaller learning communities with the different commons here as shown in blue was very important physical aspect of the campus organization. In this diagram, which shows the circulation further dispersed with the yellow diagrams of the spaces that are very conducive for social interaction, for educational purposes, we looked how do we provide that fabric of spaces throughout that campus. How do we approach the campus with the opportunities for social and educational interaction. This diagram with the blue sharing spaces distributed throughout the 4 academies, in this case, 4 small learning communities that had a number of interactive spaces between them, that was the vision that was very important for this campus to be elevated in the educational and experiential way. As you can see, all of these spaces have as much connection to the outside, to the natural light as possible, so that the campus feel can be as conducive for relaxation and the educational interaction. So as you can see in this section, the campus is split in several different buildings. The red platform is the base of the elevated campus. Underneath the platform, there is a whole parking level for about 400 cars. You can see the blue voids with the commons and cafeteria being connectors in between the different buildings. You can see how the thinking of taking the experiential quality was carried through by elevating the greenhouse on the top of the 2nd floor, where it can enjoy the benefits of the views to the outside, to the distance, and being a good educational space for the students.
So you can see here when you look at the site plan that the L-shaped building allows us to shape the building around the existing stadium and track and field and preserve the other half of the site for development of parking and additional fields. This allowed us to create this new building while the existing building was still occupied. The existing building is located roughly where the Performing Arts Center and the new parking and fields are. As we start to dive into the layout of the building, we want to give you a little bit of orientation. You heard Boris mention the idea that this is really set up as kind of multiple buildings or multiple academies that then are linked by a series of circulation spaces. So what you see in yellow are kind of the core academies that are intended primarily for 10th through 12th grade. The orange is what we've been calling the Freshman Academy, and it's largely a space for freshmen so that they can be able to get accustomed to being part of this larger community. In purple is the front entry and the administration area. In red is the new gymnasium and athletics complex. You see here in kind of a medium blue color is the Performing Arts Center and music. And in between those, as Boris mentioned, highlighted in blue are 3 separate common spaces. The idea here was that we didn't have one gigantic commons, but we had multiple spaces for students to be able to dine, as well as to create that kind of in-between or void space that allows you to get those views and penetration to the outside. And lastly, you'll see that interspersed throughout this is the elevated outdoor space. That again, because we are up above the parking, we actually have more outdoor space that students can enjoy as part of their kind of secure school experience. As we look at both the second and the third floors, you'll see that these academies are oriented as a 3-floor volume, and students can continue to kind of circulate between those volumes and get views down and above to the upper and lower floors. So as we start to look at a quick overview of the path we're going to be taking today on our virtual tour, it's going to start at the main entry and walk us through many really intriguing spaces on the first floor, across that elevated outdoor space and to the freshman building, and then back through into some additional really kind of core spaces for the main campus to the second floor, and we're going to finish up kind of at the library and the community space next to the library. You'll notice in some of the images today that there's a portion of this school that's not complete yet. That's because this is an occupied campus and we needed to build this in kind of 2 primary building phases. That second phase includes a 700-seat theater, music rooms, and support spaces for both drama and music program.
So let us look some more what an elevated campus in physical, educational, and experiential terms may mean for design of the new high school. You can see that there is opportunity to have clear connection of the spaces like commons and cafeterias with the views in the distance. You can see, for example, the clear entries are very secure, and here is the drop-off to the freshman campus that is separate from the main entry. In the educational terms, it is very important to see how the shared spaces that are interspersed through the building have good transparency and good connections with their main adjacent spaces throughout. Some of them go 2 stories high, and yet still they have view in the distance. Interesting part of our planning discussion was how to use the socializing spaces for student activities throughout the day. How can we maximize the use of space in social and educational terms? So we can see that students are using during the day, during the curriculum hours, these socializing space for their individual activities, small groups, for art classes. It was something that was really wonderful to see. This is the space where the school has been using the Commons cafeteria for the general large group staff training. Now fast forward to 2020 or 2021 and 22 and think of a hybrid model of a high school. What happens if you would hypothetically have something that would tell you that you may want to organize the learning in smaller groups of classes where the cohorts are not really mingling much with the other? How can you use the space? Is there a flipped classroom that could take a benefit of such education? And here is the occasion to use something that was intended for the staff that can be long valid in the future. We thought about how these spaces can be well connected to the nature. That concern about relationship and the scale was very important for the group. You can see these spaces connected inside, outside. You can see how that transition from inside to the outside was working and happening.
There are so many spaces throughout this building that are beautiful, that capture the views around us, but that also are just incredibly interesting and exciting. It's great to finally have students in the building. We've been building for so many years. To see students interacting with the facility and getting excited about coming to learn, that really is what this is all about, is having students be engaged, learning some incredible things, and really just launching their path into the future.
And here are a couple of examples where we try to really bring the daylight and connection to the nature with the views from near and far to allow students to have that restorative ability of nature being present in their daily life. Connection to nature was also carried through the daylighting, from the commons, cafeterias, at the edges of the campus, to deep into the spaces, to all of the spaces on the campus, such as the weight room here or career tech. The concern of the daylighting was pervasive and infuses the whole campus throughout.
Now we want you to experience Mount Si firsthand. Let's start out under the library, where you can imagine yourself being here on Friday as the Friday Morning Welcoming Committee celebrates your entry into the school. Let's enter through the main entry hall, where both school pride and community history are celebrated. The community is very proud of their history while also embracing the future needs of education. To the left is the triangle courtyard that brings you up from the parking garage and also serves as a secure outdoor lunch space. On the right, we have administration, counselors' offices, and the career center leading you into the First Commons area.
We are approaching the first of 3 common spaces. Each of these common spaces were purposely placed as a key intersection for student and teacher support. The Commons includes a lot of variety of space, whether that be the open dining area or places for prospect on the student learning stairs, or more private along the edge for those maybe who are a little more introverted and who just want to watch what's going on. The Commons is also keyly located with different support services next to it or near it, such as a student store, or upstairs right above is the library or the cafe for partaking in lunch that are prepared by the students. The Career Center was placed purposely next to the Commons, since this is going to be a large service for students who are planning their future careers, whether they be a technical school or college, university work.
The Culinary Arts is a really important program. You'll notice its central location adjacent to the First Commons. This connection to the Commons allows for food service and catering opportunities for the culinary students. Some students work side by side with the kitchen staff serving lunch. Furthering those catering opportunities, the Corner Cafe has sliding glass doors opening up to the Commons as well. The Culinary Arts program is also connected to the commercial kitchen and allows students real-world experiences in food prep, cooking, serving, and catering. This is a really big high school, so it was important to us that wayfinding is simple and intuitive. As you move through the main connector halls, textured wood panels in large numbers identify the different academies.
Brent and Malia described the importance of the culinary arts and student store to the program and to the daily life of the campus. In addition to that, it is important to note that there are 5 other dedicated locations for food distributions where students can get their food in smaller groups and help their daily circulation. We had a lot of conversation about that with the planning committee, and they have taken quite a visionary aspect. So on this image, for example, on the left side under the stairs, you can see a small cafe, but this is also adjacent to the space that is off the main commons, as Brent was describing, where the possibly introvert students can look for a pause right next to the natural space on the right-hand side. We mentioned before that the whole campus is organized so there is distribution of commonses in specific locations. There are 3 main commons areas because creating relationship was very much on the forefront of the whole school planning committee. So that way of thinking was carried through with the Biophilic principle of prospect and refuge. You can see on this image that on the left side there's a smaller space for quieter students, those that need more privacy, right next to the bigger prospect space in the larger area. And in turn, you can see that this big prospect space is almost like a refuge space to the larger distance to the Mount Si in the far. And that way of thinking about the spaces has been interwoven throughout the planning of the campus on the interior and the exterior. We put a lot of thought in designing the second floor commons areas so they can be used not just as a lunch areas, but also as a socializing area and educational spaces for curriculum between the lunch hours. It was really following the visionary ideas of the student-centered environment that the educational committee wanted to create from the early days of planning. So this exterior space, which is from one side a connector of the second commons towards the freshman campus in the distance, is also a major socializing space. It's an extending lunchroom. It's a hangout space for students. It's a connector. So you can see the students are congregating here. When we were there, they are using it just like it was imagined, and then some. It was wonderful to see how they're occupying every of these little spaces, smaller and larger groups. And this space, of course, has connection to the nature in the distance. But it also has the smaller spaces, like the space underneath this canopy on the right-hand side, which is actually an exercise space for special education suite, which is right behind it.
As we enter the freshman campus building across the elevated outdoor space, we notice that this building has the same characteristics as the rest of the campus. It's chock full of spaces that are really student-centered, starting with this main entry stair that has a teaching space and a mural of the Snoqualmie Falls, leading us into the core academic area where we have a wide variety of both interdisciplinary classrooms, small conference group working areas, and open flexible spaces. And then, of course, we've talked multiple times that third common space is located within this building. This commons is also really open to the exterior. There's a deck right out front where students can be eating covered outside, as well as really partake in the beautiful scenery around. And lastly, this building is designed with flexibility in mind. So it has its own entry, its own drop-off out front, and so a smaller administration and counseling area so that these students can really be well supported right from the time they're dropped off at school.
As a brand new high school for the district, it was crucial to develop a career technical facility that met their needs today as well as in the future. In addition to bringing our own thought leadership to CTE, we created a summer internship opportunity for high school students and recent graduates to explore creative options for the program. The students came from a rigorous design and production studio called The Future. They used this summer internship opportunity to apply what they learned in the future to the design of the career technical program at Mount Si High School.
I've kind of quit calling myself a teacher. I have these relationships with students where, a big part of my responsibility is kind of helping them navigate where they currently are and where they're going. I'm trying to create the classroom that I wish I'd had when I was in high school. The idea behind this internship experiment that I'm kind of running is finding a way for both myself and my students to get into engineering and design firms, architecture firms, and use the summer to get some real-world experience with these different disciplines. This summer, I've brought in 4 of my students to team up with NEC Architecture.
So Mike contacted me this summer and asked me if I wanted to do this internship with NEC Architecture.
We are designing a new space within the Mount Si High School.
And we're taking charge of designing the CTE SLC, so the career technology portion of the school.
We're going to be designing the space.
And how the space and the curriculum can fit together.
And we also want to include collaboration between the classrooms.
And then last I'll introduce you to the Mount Si team, which is with whom you'll end up spending more time.
Brian kind of came in and told us that the client was going to be coming in and that we would have to present alongside the Mount Si team.
There were probably 12 people in the room, and the executive committee of the school board was sitting right in the front row.
I was pretty nervous at first, but they really liked our idea.
And they're asking questions that we didn't really expect them to be asking.
But afterwards, we really kind of took what those questions were and applied them to our designs.
When you hear people talk about what they remember from high school, it's very rarely the content. It's more the relationships. And so I wasn't necessarily teaching them anymore. We were all doing it together. But yet we were still learning. It was as if the project was doing the teaching, not me. I guess the future of education for me, the environment in which I would be excited to be working in 10, 15 years from now would be one where our central mission is to develop lifelong learners. So ultimately, that's what I'd like to see for the future.
The Career Technology Center was envisioned to be a place to foster collaboration and teaming. At the heart of this center is the Innovation Lab. As you can see highlighted in yellow, this lab is literally the heart of the wing. There's generous amounts of glass to help that interconnectivity to the surrounding programs to the Innovation Lab. Within this space is a presentation area where students will present their projects to a team of mentors There are strong interconnections between all the labs and the shops, which will help facilitate the movement of materials and projects from one manufacturing or workshop space to another. Imagine, if you will, the students from the surrounding programs of robotics, electronics, engineering, and design meet together in the Innovation Lab to begin their project that they are assigned. They will work in multidiscipline teams. They will use tools within each of the labs and the shops, developing a solution to their problem. Eventually, they take it to the manufacturing lab to assemble and provide testing. They'll then, in the end, come back to the Innovation Lab to present their findings and the results to their mentors.
Above the CTE area in this academy are the art classrooms and a full range of other academic programs. Collaborative flex spaces and conference rooms give students and teachers multiple opportunities for small group learning. As you exit this academy, the textured wood walls and graphics remind you of your place within the school.
Each academy within the school is designed as an interdisciplinary place for teaching and learning. These academies, as you see here, have a central, open, flexible collaborative space as shown in yellow. There's going to be a series of academic classrooms that have very large windows looking into those spaces. And you'll notice on floors 2 and 3, we have a variety of different types of science labs that complement the interdisciplinary learning within these spaces. And within one floor of each academy is always located a teacher collaboration room. This allows teachers within the academy to be able to do interdisciplinary collaboration and staff planning. These academies are really trying to advance that mission that Boris talked about before of having an elevated educational experience. Just as the common spaces within the school are always structured around a view to the outside and especially a view to Mount Si, so it is with the academies. They have fantastic views to the outside, so the students are always really feeling not just connected to their academic programs, but also to nature.
As we look at this floor plan of the library, we can see that library was envisioned as a multitude of spaces of synergetic nature that can provide flexibility for academic pursuits in the future. As you're approaching it, the brown space, it's ASB room with a large transparency. The magenta is the video lab that is right next to the video production. And it is a space that can be working in conjunction with the library. After hours, students can make their project, research in the library, and continue their education. The red space is the maker space, which is again something that can be helped by research and is a space that can benefit from good interaction with the library. As you think of the library and this location in the building, it is really the one space that's both for the students, for the staff on a daily basis, for the community gatherings. It is designed for about 150 people, and it is one space from which you can relate yourself both to the Rattlesnake Ridge on the south and to the Mount Si of the east. It's really anchoring the Mount Si High School at the third large mass in the valley.
As Boris was just describing, the library is one of those key public gathering spaces in the school. But of course, the gymnasium and its associated lobby is also a gathering space. As you leave the library, you end up at the top of the stair where you get to see that historic mural and a great view into that lobby space. To celebrate the community connections that happen within that lobby, we have created a custom perforated metal graphic that celebrates Mount Si.
It is my hope that we can always remember that this building is more than just what is visible from the street. We set out to provide a facility to foster student engagement, support staff in delivering the highest quality of education, and help all students have a successful 21st century high school experience. We have built Mount Si High School with pride, and we hope that our entire community is equally proud of the newest addition to our amazing valley. Welcome to our house. Welcome to Wildcat Country.